What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in into this channel. My name is Rich Wilson, founder and film director of Vibe Media, where we help your brand build to an influencer level online presence using filmmaking tools and tips to tell your story. We have a fun episode of Vibe Check for you today, and if it's your first time tuning in, welcome. Thanks for taking the time and spending it here with us. And if you like the show, if you end up liking the show at the end, well, be sure to like and subscribe and stay tuned for more episodes and newer content coming up every single week. Today we have another movie challenge reaction episode where we've challenged each other on watching movies that we may not be familiar with, we haven't watched in a while, etc. But today we react to the 1999 indie film hit Run Lola Run. Now, spoilers are in effect as always when we talk in depth on these movies, so you have been warned. But if you're ready, just like we are, what are we doing right here? Let's go. On with the episode. Hey everybody, welcome to Vibe Checked, the podcast for aspiring filmmakers and film enthusiasts like ourselves. I'm Rich Wilson, founder and director at Vibe Media, and with me is
Dana.
And Forrest.
Yeah, and we are here yet again, talking about movies, some of our favorites, some of the ones that we have watched and challenged the other two to watch. And Forrest, tell us a little bit about Run Lola Run.
Yeah, so I decided to pick a film school classic that everybody kind of learns about when you go through film school, is Run Lola Run. It came out in 98, I believe, if my notes are correct. And a lot of interesting things that have spawned from this movie. A lot of interesting facts about its budget, about changing the way that normally films would progress. So I'm interested to see what you guys took away from it, if you picked up on any of the same things that I did or that I knew about.
Probably not for me, but...
I will admit this. I will, make the confession right now. It's definitely fresh in my head because I watched it last night.
Same.
Okay. We're all procrastinators. I did the same thing on the 1917 week in Parasite. I watched
it
the day before. I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I did the same with 1917. I watched it the day before.
We're horrible. It's
fine. Well, it's fresh in our minds, you know.
This is a good one to have fresh in your mind, though, because there's a lot.
Yeah, well, and it's a short movie, too. I did not expect the runtime on it only being 79 minutes long. 79 minutes, so that's just literally over an hour. And it was, for me, amazing. My first impressions after watching the whole thing is, wow, that was actually a really compelling story in basically an hour.
So the reason, just to kind of touch on that immediately, is this is an independent film.
Yeah.
It literally has a budget of $1.7 million.
Won a Sundance Film Festival Award in 99.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and then blew up from there because it was already released prior. It didn't really get famous overseas. It actually had a huge U.S. boom.
Really?
It made $22 million in the box office, and it was only a $1.7 million movie to make.
Wow.
So they had a great success over here, and then it ended up leaking into several other aspects here afterwards, which we're going to talk on. But that would be the reason why it kind of wasn't as long as normal films nowadays. But also think about movies back in the 90s versus now.
And I felt like it kind of had to be a little short because she's given 20 minutes to get there 3 times. That's 60 minutes, and then 19 minutes for extra storytelling. I think they timed it out perfect, honestly. Yeah. And it didn't feel like a short film when you're watching it. It felt like, has it been 20 minutes? It felt like it's been longer than 20 minutes.
Yeah.
There's a lot that happens in that 20 minutes, and it happens 3 times over. So
I know.
In different ways and different combinations. And so what do you guys think?
I enjoyed it. I don't know if honestly, it would not be even on my radar unless you told me about it. And yeah, I enjoyed it. Like I said, I watched it last night. I did have to pause it a couple times because, I've got kids. I had a, on and off kind of thing, one kid was parenting, kid wouldn't want to go to bed, but overall, I did enjoy it.
I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal, especially getting to see a movie so as old as me quite literally, I was also born in 98.
We're old men, me and Rich over here. Yeah,
What?
Yeah. No, so I mean, for those who don't know on this movie, real quick, just a basic example of what it is. It's essentially Lola, the main character, is tasked with helping her boyfriend pay off some debt that he owes. And money, and they have to get $100,000, whatever.
Yeah, $100,000.
The equivalency of $100,000 in 20 minutes. And so the first run through of the movie, the first 20 minutes or so, is her going out on this mission as soon as she receives the phone call to accomplish this task. And then, going through a course of events, there's several different things that happen, and then ends up culminating in a failure of her task. So what happens shortly after that is essentially the whole thing jumps back, repeats the process all over, changes some things up.
Changes slightly.
Slightly, and just from one thing that changes in the beginning. If you'll notice, the part that really typically changes is the
stairs.
Animation.
Is the animation part of the stairs. Yes,
and
I
did
notice that.
It was so cool to see a movie that old and a foreign film incorporate animation into it like that, and such like a changing way for the plot, pretty much.
Yeah, and so this animation part is the one thing that they you can tell where they tried to cut budget as well, having to refilm it every time, because they go through and change it once there. It changes the whole outcome of the rest of the shots that they reshot there, and then again, one more failure, so it goes back to replay the whole scenario again. So it's a very deja vu-esque movie. It's a very Butterfly Effect. I mean, movies like that are directly influenced from this movie. Obviously, changing one thing can change everything. So with that being said, I know that, with the animation itself, there's that, but did you guys notice anything for color-wise?
Her red hair. I loved that. I loved her red hair. There was a lot of green.
It definitely stood her out,
Yeah, it made her seem weird and edgy, and especially the first scene where she goes to see her dad, and he's like, "You think I would have ever fathered a weirdo like you?" It's like, she is weird because she's got red hair, and that's why she's with this guy, and that's why she's in this situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so red has a huge significance in this movie. From the very beginning, the phone that she's on is red.
Mm-hmm. She's got a red bag at one point with money.
She's got a red bag. She's got, anytime she runs into the bicycle, it's a red bicycle.
The ambulance is red.
Ambulance. So red is a very,
dominant theme.
In this. Red typically is significant, or typically is meaning, danger, death, imminent, anything that's difficult in task. That bleeds into the other contrasting color that you see a lot is the green.
Right. Which, again, in one of them, she had a green bag.
Mm-hmm. She had green pants on the entire time.
Green pants, green bag, all of those things. And something that I'll touch in here in a second on the kind of significance behind that. But green is another really important color in this movie because it's exemplifying the exact opposite of difficulty, of death, of all of those things.
That makes sense, actually, compared to what scene they used green in, the green bag in. So then what was white? Because they had a white bag.
So white is kind of that neutral ground. They also threw in some yellow. White and yellow were kind of interchanged in one of the kind of run-throughs of this. Jumping into it, kind of the biggest thing that people notice about this film is that it's very reminiscent of a video game. As far as every time, if you think back to playing classic Mario, all of these things, that anytime that your character dies, there's a red screen, game over, and you have to start over again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So with that being said, red has that significant, as the timer counts down in a Mario game, it turns red. As, you're dealing with enemies, that, your health bar gets red. Everything gets difficult as it goes on.
That makes sense.
The green would represent the things that are going good. So
yeah,
green for her pants shows her athleticism because she's good at running. So it's a good trait that she has.
So when they're laying in bed together and they're both having, it's different perspectives on the conversation between them. That's why it's red, because that's when it's restarting, pretty much.
It's essentially the restarting.
And the red
happening
phone.
As he's dying, things of that nature.
Yeah.
So it's resetting in that aspect. It's a really interesting use of colors, I would say, for that film. It's one of the things that I had kind of mentioned before, being a lover of video games, that this actually did directly influence a couple of video games. One specifically is Majora's Mask from
Really?
Legend of Zelda.
Wow.
So the concept of Legend of Zelda from Majora's Mask, for those who don't know, is you're essentially a race against time before the moon crashes into
Right.
Hyrule.
And you have 3 days to do it.
And
You
you have
know?
3 days to do it, and you constantly have to accomplish tasks, but then reset time and replay certain things in a different way to accomplish different tasks. So
Interesting.
they immediately, that game came out 2 years after this movie was there, and Majora's Mask had a very short production time. So they
That's
were actually
right.
directly influenced with the thought of going back and using that butterfly effect in order to tell a story.
Oh, that's so interesting.
That's
Wow.
actually really cool. I'm pretty surprised.
Yeah, so it's interesting, and then obviously going back to Legend of Zelda, green is a huge big thing. As it becomes more of a hero, green is used all the time.
The tunic and
Red, Ganondorf has all those red things.
Yeah.
It's a those colors mean a lot of things significantly there for you. So, I mean, what do you guys think about that? Do you guys have any other video games or things that you could think of that really?
So I picked up one thing from the opening sequence where it's showing all the characters. It's like breaking down, this actor played this character. That was really similar to how Japan used to do its video games, like Resident Evil, Silent Hill. It would have actual actors
Street
portray
Fighter,
these.
yeah.
And they would be like, what's it called? Exposition kind of people. And then it would go into the actual video game and switch back over to the animated game. So as soon as I saw that was the first thing that clicked in my mind. I was like, Resident Evil, it's probably not that game specifically, but that's just the type of vibes I'm getting from it. So I kind of had a feeling it was going towards that way, especially since in the late 90s a lot of movies were kind of centered around video games, probably not influenced other video games, but were influenced by video games, like I can't even think of any, to be honest.
There are
but
some
there's
out there.
there's quite a few, like Circle and all of that stuff.
It really became, in the early 2000s, because you got to think, 98 was right around the time that the N64, all that stuff was.
It was starting to come out.
So
yeah.
video games started changing from being these two-dimensional things to
3D.
Three-dimensional, having more in-depth stories because they could do so much more with polygons and things of that nature. So. Glad to see you picked up on it. It is very influential in several video games and even a couple directors. I know Edgar Wright, who does Shaun of the Dead.
Right.
He talks about that movie is one of the things that first got him into filmmaking, and he actually wishes that he was the mastermind who created that movie because it's such an influence to him, showing what you can do with film that's out of the ordinary.
It was. It was something that was totally out of the box. It wasn't straightforward. It wasn't kind of your cookie cutter blockbuster, but it was done in a way to where it definitely kept my interest. Like I said, it probably would never come on my radar without you actually telling me about this movie. But it kept my interest the entire time because I was like, okay, this is happening. Oh, and then now this is happening. It's quite interesting that one little thing at the very beginning just changed the course of everything. Her bumping into the woman, and you got to see, every time
CPS taking away her kids.
Yeah.
To winning the lottery, to becoming a nun.
Right. Like, what? And then, like, there was one time, actually, it was the first time when she ran around the corner of the bum walked by her. I was like, that's him! Go get him! He's right there! And I was actually waiting to see if that was going to play an effect in another version of it. And it kind of did, kind of didn't. Like, she didn't end up getting the bag. Manny actually ended up getting it in one of the other ones, and everything was all hunky-dory.
Well, and it's interesting to see, like, because there's one run through where she injures her leg and then has a limp, which causes her to be slower, but then also prevents her from hitting the car, getting hit by the car, because she's not there at the same time. So, like, there's different interesting factors that play into, like, if you were 1 second behind schedule, this thing that could have put you 5 more seconds behind wouldn't happen.
Right.
So you're getting there at a different time, different scenarios.
And I think it was done brilliantly because of that, because of something that just, like you said, slowed her down. I picked up on that too. It was like, oh, she's limping now, so now she's going to be slower, which some of the things, like bumping into the woman. It wasn't just a brush of the shoulder. It was a full on impact of the woman. And then instead of the guy hitting the car at the front of the car, he actually hits it at the back of the car. And
even when he misses it, he still hits the car.
He still hits the car, it was like, it was almost like, Final Destination at that point, it just string theory, right?
It's the original butterfly effect. It really is. It's one of those the Germans, honestly, one of the things you learn in film school is that Germans were innovators in their field, as far as even editing goes, that everything was kind of so systematic the way that it would work, and then Germans would come in and be like, well, I'm going to do things different, and then everybody who didn't know how to take it, but they were like, this is actually really interesting. And so changing things from the normal that they were, this is kind of one of those first films in the time that you could start getting international films from overseas more regularly, that people around the world, again, that's why the U.S. market took off and loved it. They were like, oh, this is something different that we haven't seen in our film industry. Like, this is brilliant. So it's one of my favorite films that I like to go back to just to kind of see and look. And again, color theory is a big thing for me. So colors and having that significance is really fun.
Well, here's actually a question that I didn't actually pick up on, and I just don't understand. Her screaming.
Yeah, I was about to ask the same question.
What was that about? I don't know if there was an actual answer to that, because she screams, glass breaks.
She's just weird.
And then at the in the third set, she screams enough to where she basically changes the way the ball hit in the casino.
So that's where it comes into potentially being that these subsequent runs that happened after the first failure were all in her subconscious mind. It's possible that she's creating her own reality of what's happening, or again, going back to kind of a video game aspect, that as you fail, you learn and you know what you did wrong the first time, so the next time you go and do it, you know what to do different to make things happen. So it's again kind of just making it to where the characters are real, but also making it to where the characters aren't too realistic in this world, because every other character that you see, the old woman, the guy on the bike, all of those things, they don't have any depth to them. They're very just NPC-like characters for Lola, who is the main character for this movie.
Interesting.
So if you compare it to a Grand Theft Auto or anything else, you look at all these people that are in the world that literally have no meaning.
Basically, they're just in her world.
And there's very few characters that you actually have dialogue with and that you actually have a significant impact to. So it's kind of the same thing. It's just,
hence, we see them, their possible outcomes. Interesting.
So in the order of sequences, did it go she was on time and then late and then early, or was it early, late, and then on time?
She was late, early, and then on time.
Right on time. Okay, cool. Because I had a little bit of struggle keeping track.
Right. Because the late one is when he was already trying to rob the store.
Yeah, he was already inside
the car and all that. So there's a lot of different things that happen here based on if she wasn't able to stop him, whether she robs it, she goes to the casino and bets on the same number twice and wins. There's all these cool things that happen with things that are different. So,
which is real. That does happen. The one time I went to Vegas, I did win twice with the same number. So that was believable.
Yeah, you're like, I could relate to that.
This is my life.
It also lends to that whole creating her own subconscious, creating the reality too. Is the chances of that happening are astronomical.
I almost when the movie ended, I almost wondered, did she really just die in the first run through, and that this is all just her subconsciously, or did he also die and they're both just subconsciously playing out what they wanted to happen, or did I know that's the main question.
Exactly, the question is, what was the real run?
Was any of it real?
Was any of it real?
Did she even go to him? Did she? Because I would have just been like, bye. I'm not doing that for you.
You never know. It's,
unless the director says.
Which there could be something out there. I don't know if it is, but that's what I think makes it an interesting movie.
Well, it could also be like an Inception thing. It's all in Inception, it was asked, was it real or was it fake? And the director just said quite frankly, well, what, it doesn't matter what you think, it's right.
It's your own interpretation.
It's your own interpretation.
What you think. Yeah.
You are right in both. You could debate it. He goes, I don't have the answer.
Well, I would like to say she did scream at the very beginning and she broke stuff. So I almost wonder if that was a real thing that she could do, because that was before she even ran through the first go.
True.
So
or was it any of it real? Was she just dreaming?
Did she die when she got robbed for the moped?
Oh, right. Or what if that, like, in between where they were talking while laying in bed, what if that was real and everything else was just hypothetical questioning of what would happen if they died, or what would happen, et cetera, et cetera?
Hey guys, welcome to film school.
This is why I dropped out of college.
This is exactly why it takes several years to go through film school and writing 10-page papers, and why sometimes you have content that's so easy to write about and sometimes you don't.
See, I think I would like to talk about it rather than write about it.
Of course.
To be honest.
The one class I enjoyed in high school was film studies, where we pretty much did the same thing. We had to write papers on movies we watched. And I feel like this would be a movie I could write a 15-page essay on and just talk about how many different outcomes and...
Or do a 15-minute podcast on. No.
Or 15, yeah. More like 30, yeah. Right. Or like, what theories are there that like could create this? And I also loved that the very beginning shot, the whole plot was driven because she was late the first time.
Right. Yeah.
She's always on time, Lola. You're always on time. Like I loved that it was like, okay, she's got to be on time this time, or else nothing good's gonna happen.
Well, that puts that pressure on. It puts the, again, it's.
And then look what happens when she's late again. She dies.
She dies. Yeah.
Now, if she was just like a Boy Scout and just was always prepared and always on time, 15 minutes early, you're on time.
The Girl Scouts only teach you how to sell cookies, not how to be prepared.
Well, a lot of things, though. And again, one of the biggest theories people have out there is that it is a video game, that she's essentially a video game character. And so the whole thing is made up. It's a universe that doesn't actually exist. And so you're just playing through a level and learning as the actual player. Like, imagine yourself controlling Lola and having to replay, and you learn from your mistakes, or you mess up in a different way, so it affects the way the rest of the level goes. All that fun stuff.
Pretty much, don't burst into your dad's office, or else you'll find out that you're a bastard child.
Yeah, and a lot of things that you're like, oh, a nun, and this, a casino. You're like, how does that all fit into a 70-minute movie?
Right,
like,
yeah.
It's amazing what they were able to do with this movie off of very simple one story.
It's that concept that we touched on earlier, is that one little thing can change the course of just anything. Like, there's a lot of times where I think anybody can relate. If I would have left 2 minutes earlier, or if I would have left 2 minutes later, what would have happened? What would have been the outcome? Like if you're sitting in traffic because this big old wreck is in,
or being the person in the car accident,
or even being in,
if I would have left 10 minutes earlier, this whole thing wouldn't have happened.
Right.
What could have been different?
Then just seeing the effects on what you have had on other people's lives and outcomes, I think was done brilliantly. To see, bumping into the woman, not bumping into the woman, like almost tackling the woman over, the different outcomes, the outcomes of the guy on the bike, the woman in the office, where
I felt like she only had one outcome, though. I think it only showed the woman in the office. In the office,
it was two. So the one, she killed herself at the end.
Second one, she falls in love with the teller.
Yes.
You're right.
And then
because I was waiting for hers. I was like, please, I want to see what else happens to her.
So then it's like, which outcome is better? Is it the one that truly benefits Lola, or is it the one that benefits more of the other people?
But the thing with that is, within the first run through, okay, there's some good outcomes and there's some really bad ones. Like the old lady ends up getting her baby taken away, so therefore she goes and steals a baby and then gets locked up because of it. And then, the guy on the bike ends up getting beaten up because he stole someone else's bike, and he ends up falling in love and getting married. And then in the second run through, she ends up winning the lottery, and he ends up becoming a heroin addict and overdosing.
Right.
It's like there's good and bad in it, and you can't there's no right choice except for your own personal
That's the point.
gain.
It's like
Yeah.
it's never all
Yeah.
going to be perfect. It's just whatever one is the best outcome for whatever you choose.
I'd
Is
say
it-
go with the best outcome for Lola.
Well, that's Run Lola Run for you guys. I know it's an interesting choice.
I was
great.
expecting it to be boring. I thought it was going to be like some drab German film, and I was so
my choices
wrong.
in movies.
I underestimate your guys' choices of movies because I usually watch the weird movies.
This one is weird in a different way.
Yes.
So it's yeah.
Well, if you watch the trailer too, which I watched the trailer first, you have no idea what the heck is going on in the trailer. You're like, huh? My wife even said, "Well, can I watch the trailer?" When
You made your wife watch these movies with you?
well, she watched Parasite with me, which I'll tell you she did not like. She did not really watch this one with me, but she's like, "Well, let me just see the trailer." And I was like, watching the trailer is a waste of time because you won't know what's going on." And she's like, "Well, let me determine that." And so I put it on, and she's like, "Huh, I have no idea what's going on with this movie. What's this movie about?" I was like, "Well, I told you." But of course I'm great. My wife is definitely a film enthusiast as well, so hopefully she listens to this podcast. Maybe not. I don't know.
Our only listener.
Yeah.
No. Besides us.
Shout out to Rich's wife.
Hi, honey. I love you. No. So, well, that's it for our first challenge. For the next episode, let's come back with some more movies to challenge each other, and I cannot wait to see what we come up with. Honestly, I think for a first round, these were pretty solid. Little spice of everything. Little column A, little column B, just
We
what
were all
we
over
needed.
the map.
We really were. So I can't wait to see what we thought. If you have watched Run Lola Run, let us know what you thought of it. If you haven't watched it, do it. You will definitely enjoy it.
Or at least learn something. You'll see
Or learn
another
something.
thing
Yeah,
from it.
you'll see something. If there's something that we missed in here, let us know what you thought of it. What did you see from this movie? And just let us know.
Yeah, what
Also
outcome
give
do you
us-
think was the best?
and also, let us know some movies that you'd like us to see. Maybe challenge us. Maybe we'll take a
Oh, I have a plethora of weird movies for you guys to watch. So I'm set on my list, but I have a feeling you two.
I have a lot of stuff. It's about the accessibility. It's about the
Yeah.
appropriate audience too, like all of those things. So I'd have to really rack my brain to see what I want to do next.
Run Lola Run was a little tricky to find with English subtitles, but I did it. I found it.
yes.
You are savvy.
Thanks.
Now we know. In the future,
1, 2,
I'll pick
3
something that at
movies.
least I have a DVD. I have a DVD copy of this. I could have, I guess, loaned it to you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Round
You-
robin it, but
It was a part of the trip, you know?
there you go.
Yeah.
So we'll figure something out. But yeah, give us suggestions for next recommendations. We'll still do that, and then we'll check in still every other week. Kind of. We're gonna mix in other topics in between, but.
Other than that, thank you for listening and keep vibing.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Ooh, crazy episode, right? Wait, is this my first time, second time, third time being here? I don't know. Well, I hope you enjoyed the episode, and if you like the show, be sure to hit that like button and follow and subscribe to know when we drop the latest episodes each and every Friday. Plus, we're coming up with new content very, very soon, so you don't want to miss that. Also, let us know on how we're doing by sending us a shout out in the comments below. Also, tell us what you thought of the movie. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Was it confusing? Let us know. Thanks again for joining us here on the Vibe Media channel. And as always, keep creating, build your brand, and go out there and tell your story.